Hello, I'm Anthony. Welcome to the Korg M1 tutorial series. Today we're going to spend most of our time looking at the drum oscillator. It's quite significantly different from the standard instrument oscillator. I'm also going to use that as an opportunity to talk about file management. Because drum kits use an additional layer of file management, it's going to be a perfect opportunity to talk about that as well. Hope you enjoyed this video today. If you do, check out the Patreon and channel member links below. It's an awesome way to help support my channel. Okay, we're going to start off in the program page today. We're going to load a single drum kit into memory. Let's hop into the browser and I'm going to use the search filter to look for just drum kits. Now, most of the time during this series, we've just concentrated on the M1 card. It really doesn't matter where you get your drum kit from, but we're going to load this program number 9. The difference between drum oscillators and regular oscillators is that in a drum kit, every key has the potential to make a different sound. You can see that this program's been loaded in drums mode. This is an oscillator mode that we've not really looked at yet. Now I'm just going to run up the keyboard and you can hear it playing different drum sounds. What you're hearing at the moment is M1 Kit 1. This is a drum preset. Here is our oscillator preset. We can head into the browser and if we search by card number, you can see here are the drum kits assigned to card number 1. But of course, there are multiple different cards that we can select from. Now these are just starting points. We're not constrained to these kits as you'll see shortly. So if I double click kit 2, I've just basically overwritten all of the drum sounds in this drum kit. And quite clearly here, particularly as I was running up that little tom section there, we didn't have that in kit 1. So that's dealing with the drum kit in much the same way that you would a normal oscillator. Apart from the fact that we have different sounds, it's being managed as a single entity. Where the flavour really lies in the M1 drum kits though is in the drum kit edit page. Let's have a look at what's going on over here. First thing that I'm going to do is enable a really useful feature called keyboard chase. If we enable this feature, it means that every key that I press on the keyboard is going to auto select all of the program information for that key. It's not overwriting one key with another, it's literally just helping me to see what I'm hearing. So if, for instance, I press F1, now you can see information specifically tailored to that closed hi-hat sound. I'm not sure what this symbol is, by the way. It looks like some sort of interface bug. As far as I can tell, it doesn't actually do anything or mean anything, so we're just going to ignore that symbol today. Let's head back to where we started. Initially, I loaded kit 1, so I want to get back there. As you can see, kit 1 has a different sound assigned to F1. Now it's a snare. Now I'm going to start playing notes backwards from F1. So here's E1. That's a kick. Now I'm going to play D sharp 1. So I'm toggling backwards and forwards between those two notes. What you're hearing there is two different versions of E1. The M1 has a really kind of unusual method of assigning keys to drum kits. If a key hasn't been assigned a particular sound, as is the case with D sharp 1 here, it looks up the keyboard to find the next available sound that has been mapped, and it's E1. So D sharp 1 plays the sound that's been assigned to the key above it, but pitch shifted down by a semitone. Now, ordinarily, samples are assigned a lowest note priority, so it's slightly unusual to have a high note priority here. Not that it particularly matters, we just need to know what's going on, and now we do, so it's all good. The next note I'm going to press is F2. Okay, there's my hi-hat on F2. Play G2, there's my open hat. Now I want to assign those two notes to a choke group or an exclusive group. M1 just calls them drum groups. Here it is at the bottom of the page. What it basically means is that when I play the closed hat following a ringing open hat, the closed hat's going to choke off the open hat. This is a very common kind of thing where you hit the open hat and then the drummer will basically slam them shut as he hits the closed hat. And you get, well, not what we're hearing at the moment because they're completely independent sounds. So what I need to do is assign F2 and G2 to the same drum group. Now I think there's an interface bug in the M1 here. This can be kind of tricky to do. If you want to edit this drum group, you can pick it up and move between any one of the available 127 drum groups. Or you can double click in the box and type the number 1. If we head up to G2 and I simply double click in the box, type 1 and hit enter, it didn't work. It looks like you need to get to a value other than off before M1 will accept. I don't exactly know what's going on, but there's some sort of ugly bug there. But anyway, bottom line is we've now assigned both of those notes to drum group number 1. Now it's quite clear, the moment I play the closed hat, it's choking the G2. Now I'm going to play F#2. There's no current sound assigned to that, so it's going to play a slightly lower pitched version of G2. I'm going to use that F# in a minute. We'll just come back to it. For now, we'll stick on G2. And now we have some relatively straightforward tonal control. So this is a separate filter cutoff for every single drum sound. So I've just made it duller. I can hard pan each one of the drum sounds. If you're listening in stereo, that's way over on the left now. Quick note about the pan settings. This is the only time today we're going to actually have a look at combis, because for the most part we're talking about a program. This is all of the sounds collected inside a single program. But I'm just going to jump very quickly across to the Combi page, and I'm going to load a drum kit into Tomba number 5. I'll use the same kit, no reason not to. So when I loaded that kit, we saw this in the previous episode where the routings page changes to show you that drum kits are capable of outputting to 4 different outputs. You may be wondering why the pan settings disappeared. Drum kits as a whole don't have a pan value because every single sound inside the drum kit has its own independent pan setting. I'm back over in the program page. So here we are, I've dulled the sound, taken some cutoff away, I've panned it harder to the left. There's my open hat on G2. Now I'm going to play F#2. The interface values all resolve to 0 because F#2 is taking all of its notational and tonal information from the G2 note above it. There's no point making any changes to any of these interface settings, so I'll play F#2 now. This bottom section of the interface is effectively dead. It would be really nice if these values were greyed out to tell me that they're useless and they're not actually doing anything. But F#2 is a child of G2. This is the note and these are the values that we're going to hear when we play the key. Okay, back to G2. Master tuning, master volume level, and decay determines how short or long the sound is. So this is an open hat. You're hearing mostly reverb there. The sound itself is very, very short. We're going to go on to have a look at effects in a moment, and I'll show you the reverb working on this sound. Just quickly to say, on note is basically whether or not you're going to hear that sound. So don't disable it. If you want to hear the hi-hat, I'm playing G2 there. You're not hearing the sound at all, so you can individually disable each drum sound. And this final value has a terrible title. This is whether or not note off messages are received. Note off messages are almost never used. They're extremely uncommon. It's actually an independent MIDI trigger. If you press the note down, you receive a note on. When you release the key, it actually generates its own MIDI message called a note off. And this, for some reason, it's called receive off. I don't know why. I don't think I've ever enabled that feature. Basically just leave it turned off. So since I've butchered that sound, I'm just going to reload my M1 kit again. Now we can have a look at insert effects, because for drum sounds we have a new value. This routing type, which is basically redundant for normal oscillators because you can only have serial routing. Now we have a new feature in drum kits called parallel. The easiest way to demonstrate this is to put a delay on FX1 because it's such an identifiable sound. Okay. So as I'm playing that note, that's F2 that I'm playing, that particular drum sound is being routed to bus AB. If we have a look at the insert effects, here's AB and it's going to outputs 1 and 2. At this point, I'm going to enable outputs 3 and 4. These are all pairs, so that's outputs 3 and 4 just enabled. And now I can drop this down and we can see here's 1 and 2. And here's 3 and 4. We've just seen that the hi-hat is routed to AB. So there's us going through outputs 1 and 2. Route the sound to C and D instead. Let's hear what that sounds like first. Okay, so it's just, the sound is just going to 3/4. It's going through the reverb effect and then straight to the outside world. If I engage the pan values in between this routing matrix, now this signal's going to be routed to 1 and 2 as well. But did you notice that we didn't hear any delay? This route does not go through FX1. Back to serial mode. Now the signal is going to go through the reverb into 1 and 2 and dry to 3 and 4. Switch back to AB routing and just get output on 1, 2. So you have more complex routing options. This is because drum kits in the M1 use up to 4 channels. Don't forget, you've got so many different sounds spread across the drum kit. Now there's a legitimate reason to potentially need more routing options, so you can play with your routing types to get there. It's also worthwhile noting, I'll just play an A to get myself to a different sound. It's also worth noting that you have an independent browser for every single drum sound, and they can spread across all of the various different memory cards. So here I can load a drum sound from memory card number 5 into this drum kit. This is the advantage of having all of this stuff in software. You couldn't have done this on the hardware. But now that sound is coming from a different memory card than that sound was. Okay then, so we've made all of our edits. We've built our perfect M1 drum kit. Now we want to save it. Well, we can save drum kits individually using the right button inside the oscillator page. So at this point, I'm literally just storing the internal drum kit oscillator. This is below the level of the program. I'm storing an oscillator here. So we have 40 internal slots spread out over 2 memory cards. So if I click in slot number 1 and say OK, now that kit's been stored in internal memory. If we head back into the browser and jump over to user card 1, there it is. Double click it to load. So that's me managing the oscillators. Now let's store the program. So I'm going to rename it. I'll call it my drum kit. Just for now, we're going to remain in internal memory. So I'm now going to store the program in the M1's internal system by clicking the program right button. Because I have a program selected, that's my only available option. If I had a Combi selected, I'd have different options available to me. So I'm going to write this program, and now we have 4 user cards dedicated for storing programs. So we select slot number 1 and we say OK. That program's now been stored in internal memory. Now, why am I concentrating so hard on this internal business? Because everything that I've done up until now is inside this instance of this plugin on this track in this project. This doesn't have any applicability to the outside world, but we are going to get there. We can store this stuff as external files, but just for now we're dealing with this instance of the M1. So now I've stored the drum kit oscillator inside the program, inside my M1's memory. Let's throw everything away. Head over to my browser and load any old random program. First thing that I want to do is get my program back. Head over to my browser, jump to the card tab, user number 1, here's my drum kit. Now, of course, that's loaded the oscillator that we saved earlier, but it doesn't need to. Let's throw it away, load a different oscillator, head back into the browser, and here's my user kit available for recall. Okay, so that's an example of managing all of our internal settings, and this is a great way of building your kind of perfect suite of programs. Let's say you audition all of the sounds in the M1 and you pick out a set of programs that you really like, or combis. You can store all of that stuff in internal memory. Combis have internal capacity as well. Same kind of 4-card business. Let's try that. Here are our 4 user cards, exactly the same. So program slots and Combi slots live side by side. They don't overwrite each other. So you've configured all of these sounds and you've got the perfect M1 of your dreams. Now you want to export that to the outside world so that you can use it outside of this project. At this point, we head to the File button. Now we're going to interact with our operating system. I'm going to say Save, and you can save different levels of discrete information. You could, for instance, just save the drum kit program as a single independent entity. That's not actually the way that I prefer to store information on my systems. The M1 gives you the ability to store everything all in one go, and because you can have multiple of these mass files, I think it's a much easier way to work. So I'm going to select All Data and call it M1. And as you can see, I've already created this file. Say yes, and now everything is stored. Let's throw the entire track away and load an M1 from scratch. At the moment, none of our personal configuration data is there. Head into the browser, and if we have a look at the user bank, it's empty. But we can recover that data file that we stored. Head into File, Load, All Data, load my M1, and once again we have access to our fully curated, personalized version of the M1. And that's the end of the series. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please hit like if you did. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content like this. I'll see you then. Thanks very much.